Alrighty, we're at 3:04. So if I could have, please, everybody go ahead and put themselves on mute. I'm going to give a brief rundown of the agenda, and then we are going to kick it off and give it to the Eastland Yards Indoor Sports Complex team. So welcome, everyone. For those unfamiliar, we are CharlotteEAST. We are a all-volunteer nonprofit that has been around since 2003. Dedicated to the revitalization of the Eastland corridor, but really dedicated to the people and places that make East Charlotte great. So today we are here to discuss the option B of the city's two proposed potential plans for the remaining acreage of Eastland Yards, and that would be the Eastland Yards Indoor Sports Complex. So our agenda this afternoon is going to be a quick context and site plan with some very brief videos that we've previously sent out, but feel that it is extremely important to share again at the top of this meeting, just so individuals are aware exactly what land we are referring to. There's a lot of land, different parcels in this site, so we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with that. We are going to do a Q&A after a brief presentation from the team and then talk about next steps at 3:50. So some meeting norms, please stay muted at all times. Do our best to hold all questions, because I know this is Eastland, everybody's going to have a lot of wonderful questions, truly. Please hold all questions and hand raising until the Q&A period, just so we can stay on track with the agenda and the presentation. There will absolutely be a period to get your questions answered. And the one very big thing for today that I want to focus on is, let's keep all the focus of discussion on just the option being presented. We do know that there is an option A, which would be an outdoor entertainment venue with some other elements as well. But for the purposes of this conversation, it is truly just an informative meeting so you guys can learn about option B. So with that said, Jordan, I'm going to put you on full blast right now. Wanted to give two very quick few-minute videos, again, for those who have not watched them, explaining the context of where we are right now, as this advocacy has been going on for us since November, almost like, a full-time thing. So I am going to go ahead and start with this one, and then we are going to segue into the next. So full context, this video was made before City Council held its committee meeting at the beginning of this month.
Eastland has been in the news a lot over the past few months as our City Council's Economic Development Committee continues to meet to decide what to do with the property. On Monday, June 5th, the committee will meet again, and Eastland will be at the top of their agenda. With so much information already floating around out there, I wanted to take a second to hit the pause button and provide a brief overview of where we are with respect to Eastland. For starters, Eastland is about an 80-acre property where Eastland Mall once stood until 2013 when it was demolished. Since then, the city has taken a variety of steps to help determine the future of this site. In 2018, the city selected Crosland Southeast to be the site's master developer, putting them in charge of making sure the 80-acre property was ready for its next stage. However, Crosland will be specifically responsible for about 45 to 50 acres that are composed of the Daily, the Reside, and the Eat and Meat sections of the graph above. Eat and Meat will eventually be a park managed by Mecklenburg County. The Daily will be comprised of a variety of amenities for the East Charlotte community to use, and Reside will be home to an affordable housing development for seniors, over 150 townhomes and single-family homes, and over 250 multifamily units. The last bit of the property, named Active, is about 29 acres where the city is still trying to determine what to put there. The community has long since asked for a sports-related component, hence why it's dubbed Active. Now, a disclaimer, none of these names are like...
So this 29 acres is what we're discussing today. Okay, so just the portion that says Active, the rest of the site plan, that's to the wayside for the purposes of this meeting. So this next video that is going to be very quick is an explanation of where we are now. So this was created, Jordan created this right after the committee meeting last Monday.
On Sunday, we uploaded a video providing a brief overview of the current status of Eastland. This was ahead of Charlotte City Council's Monday Economic Development Committee meeting, where Eastland was back on the agenda. While ultimately no decision was made regarding the future of Eastland's 29 remaining acres, there were three distinct actions that took place that we wanted to provide an update on. The first action was the elimination of the Racket Sports Entertainment District, otherwise known as Carolina Serves. Throughout this process, both committee staff and committee members expressed their concerns about this proposal, primarily in the fact that Carolina Serves was requesting over $28 million from the city of Charlotte to support their project. That would have been about 88% of total project costs. That led for committee staff to recommend this proposal be removed from consideration, and ultimately committee members accepted that recommendation. Now you may be asking, if Carolina Serves was removed as a proposal, then what other proposals remain? And that leads me to our next point. The second action that the committee took yesterday was the introduction of a new proposal. This proposal is an indoor sports complex being headed up by three different organizations led by a Charlotte-based company named Synergy Sports. Now, the city only received this proposal just days ago, so committee staff haven't had the opportunity to fully vet this proposal, but that will be coming over the next few weeks. However, if you want to take a second to read more information, I'll get out of your way. Feel free to screenshot this and read up on more of this proposal and what it entails. The third action that council members took yesterday was to accept the recommendation from committee staff to host another cycle of community engagement. This cycle of community engagement will be carried out in two different ways. One will be an in-person community meeting later this month. A date has yet to be determined. The other will be a digital survey disseminated to East Charlotte residents to collect feedback. Either way, please stay tuned here because we want to make sure that for the in-person meeting and for the digital survey, as many people are as involved as possible so that this decision-making process is inclusive. So that about covers it for Monday's meeting. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment below.
Alrighty, so thank you, Jordan. That is where we are today. And with that said, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to the team behind the Eastland Yards Indoor Sports Complex. So, Jason, the floor is all yours, and I will let you share the screen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg. Thank you guys, everyone, for coming on today and giving a few minutes of your time. I will go ahead and share my screen and go through the same presentation that Jordan had on his video. And, my name is Jason Boudreau. I guess to start off, I own Synergy Sports. I've been in Charlotte about 30 years. For the most part, grew up here, went to school here, and started my own business here. A couple of the other folks on our team, if you're scrolling through the attendee list, Robert Bolton, Stormy Scott, and many of you may know Miss Carlenia Ivory, Canty, and her husband Raymond. And so we want to take a few minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes, to walk through this proposal and presentation and just really have a conversation. I don't like talking at people. I like having conversations. And we've been in Jordan's video, one statement that he made that, council just received this proposal a few days ago. Miss Ivory and I have been working on this probably for 4 years, if not longer. And we brought this to folks at Economic Development in 2016, 2017. And for a variety of reasons, here we sit. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. Greg, give me a thumbs up if you can. All right, perfect. So kind of before we get into the weeds on Eastland Yards and the indoor sports complex and our vision behind it, I want to take a couple minutes just to give a little background on us and who we are and who I am and kind of how we're approaching this and how we're looking at this. As a company, Synergy Sports was created about 10 years ago as a consulting company to help municipalities primarily and private side partners develop sports projects for deserving communities. And that is, in its essence, our mission statement, right? We want to improve lives and bring communities together. And the vehicle that we found that we can do that best with is through sports. With sports comes so many values and qualities that you learn from a leadership standpoint, from a sportsmanship, how to win, how to lose, how to be good teammates. And you can overcome a ton of different barriers and walls that people have brought up over their the course of their lives and generationally. And so, we've assembled a team of developers, operators, subject matter experts to come together with a like mission and vision to bring this proposal to Charlotte Economic Development and to Charlotte City Council. We have about 24, if not more, of these sports complex projects in development in one phase or another around the country. And, again, we want to serve deserving communities. We see this as a way to give back to the community, to the youth, to the small businesses. And so a lot of the communities that we're involved in are underserved, deserving communities, right? We're not putting these sports complexes in affluent areas. Some of our clients are Jackson, Mississippi, right? As a city, Jackson, Mississippi wants to do something for the youth of their city. So we're working with them on how to put together an indoor and outdoor, sports facility. We've got, communities in West Texas with, population 5,000. We've got projects in the mountains of West Virginia, where the poverty rate is 20 and 30%. And so we're figuring out ways to make sports accessible and bring resources to communities that they otherwise couldn't have. And that's kind of the same vision that we're bringing to this, is that, if we can connect people and communities, then we can do great things, right, at the end of the day. And so as we look at this, right, what are the opportunities? And so, there's a lot of different buckets that these opportunities sit in. And as we go through this, right, understand that the presentation that we're doing now evolved from an earlier version, and it will likely evolve again 10 more times as we get more feedback from the community and stakeholders and folks that are involved in this project. And I'm not going to read through all of these, but right, there's a community benefit to this. There's a sports benefit to this, obviously. There's an economic benefit to this, and then there's a tourism benefit. So, all of those things are kind of wrapped up in this project. And so as we look at developing this, we want to look at ways to truly integrate the community. And it's not to say that, you can use this or you can use that at, 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. It's how are we good partners so that there's continual, consistent access for the community to aspects of the sports complex for free, for low cost, for normal cost, with scholarships, and how can the community play a part in it? From a sports standpoint, there are no sizable court-based facilities anywhere in the region, right? And so now there's a sports destination for court-based sports and tournaments and programs and things like that. There's few opportunities for turf-based sports certainly in the eastern part of the city, but I would even argue the city as a whole that isn't high-priced elitist field rental, right? And so kind of where this thing kind of funnels into is by developing this type of a facility that drives a sense of place for the community and provides sport assets for the community, it creates jobs, right? It creates direct jobs, and it creates jobs in the region that support the operations of this type of facility, right? So not only will there be 40-ish direct jobs of front desk staff and coaches and maintenance and field and a ton of other jobs, the development of this is going to lead to the development of other retail, small businesses in the community. Major employers are more likely to come in. Hotels are an obvious one. And those are going to generate jobs. And those industries will require support industries, which will generate jobs. And so this is really an economic catalyst for region, right, beyond Charlotte, that's centered in East Charlotte, right? And then from a sports tourism standpoint, I know this has been harped on a lot, but the development of this indoor sports complex generates a sports tourism draw. When you have a collection of courts in the 8 to 10 range, you're looking at 60, 70, 80 team basketball tournaments, if not larger. You're looking at indoor track meets with, 7, 8, 10,000 people on a weekend coming out here. And so that again drives more dollars into local small businesses. And so those are some of the opportunities that we see with it. And so as far as our team goes, like I said, I own Synergy Sports, and stomping around these parts for a long time. Our development partner is a group called Viking Companies, and their partner is Rad Sports. They are out of Florida. They just finished an indoor sports complex as part of a larger development that includes hotel, family entertainment, residential. It's called Celebration Point down in Gainesville, Florida. They had 19,000 people for an and then our third partner is a group called Edge Sports. They're up in the Northeast out of Boston. They are an operator as well as an owner of facilities. They own and operate about 18 facilities across the country. So they have a very strong track record on the operation side on how to make it. And so we're the glue that holds it all together, right? We're a consulting company that has resources and access to general contractors and architects and national vendors for sports components like flooring and scoreboards and things like that. Provide all the data and the analytics that drive the decision about how big do you make this place? What does it include? So we do all of the feasibility studies and we have access to all of that analytics. Full renderings and actual photos of some of the developed, own, or operate. Celebration Point, like I mentioned up in the top right, is down in Gainesville. The Worcester Ice Center, Essex Sports Center, and Boston Sports Institute are all owned and managed by Edge. Celebration Point by Viking and operated by Rad Sports. So our bench is really deep when it comes to knowing how to build these and how to operate them and how to have a great relationship with the community. All of these have fairly significant community use agreements in place that gives the community to basketball courts or indoor track or what have you on a fairly consistent basis. So as we look at this in more specifically, what our thought is at this point, right, on June, whatever today is, and this can change, right, with more conversations and more analysis. But the first phase of this development, we see from an indoor standpoint of a facility that's around 100,000 square feet. 100,000 square feet is equivalent to a Lowe's store plus a little bit with 40, 50, 60 foot ceilings. 100,000 square feet will hold 10 full-size hardwood basketball courts, which double as 20 volleyball courts, 40 pickleball courts. It can also hold an indoor track, which is that picture at the top. An indoor track, that footprint, if you will, is about 45, 50,000 square feet. It also allows for dedicated courts so that multiple things can be going on at different times or at the same time. It also, when everything is moved out of the way, it can turn into event space or portable turf space. So it's truly a multi-sport type of facility where you can run an indoor track meet, you can run a trade show or a boat show or a corporate event, out and have a full football game with 100-yard fields. And so within this indoor facility, beyond the sport components are some of the ancillary components. And those are leasable spaces for things like medical or physical therapy or chiropractic or athletic training, a fitness center open to the community, used for strength and conditioning and athlete training. concession area or a cafe or a cafe slash bar. One of the things that has come kind of front and center as we've had conversations is, what about recognizing, kids from the area that go on to do A, B, or C, or X, Y, or Z. And it's not always in sports, right? There's only a small percentage of athletes that go from high school to college to professional and do something significant professionally. But what about that kid that played high school football or high school basketball here in Charlotte that goes on to become a doctor or a lawyer or somebody in or becomes an agent? And so we wanted to have a way to recognize that, right? And so to include some semblance of a North Carolina, South Carolina Hall of Fame. And then, finally, besides things like locker rooms and bathrooms and storage rooms and things like that, having a learning academy. And again, what that like, ultimately, I'm not quite sure, but to include things like computer labs or STEM labs or robotics classrooms, workforce development, child labs, things that benefit the community to further education by not only kids, but by moms and dads, right? And so those can be used for workshops. They can be used for finance, financial literacy, leadership development, the list goes on. So we've kind of thought beyond sports as we develop this into what else brings the community together to impact, to make change. From an outdoor standpoint, right, there's not so much of a sports tourism or economic impact or large tournament focus on the outdoor components, right? But outdoor sports are important for a lot of reasons, and it should be included in a facility. So I think soccer, or we call multi-sport turf fields, is important, right? Because it's not only soccer, it's lacrosse, rugby, little kids soccer, on micro fields, flag football, regular football. It can be used for, community events, summer festivals, food truck festivals, and it gets kids out to play, right? It gets mom and dad and adult league soccer and little tot soccer programs, all the way up to rental for travel programs and everything in between, right? And then you've got things like futsal, outdoor basketball. Again, going back to when I was a kid, maybe when some of y'all were kids, we just went outside and played basketball, and so that shouldn't be forgotten. And then you got to have things for the point, having a playground, having walking paths for the community. So you can take little brothers, little sisters out to play, whether it's on a Tuesday morning or, if it's on a Saturday during a basketball tournament. And so from a site standpoint, there are things that we're looking at from the first, as part of the first phase, and then things that we're looking at down the road, right? So ultimately, it would be great to have some sort of a parking structure. They're really expensive. And so, to get this started, our vision, our plan is surface parking to begin with, ultimately building into potentially a parking structure down the road, right? A hotel is something that obviously complements what the sports complex is doing. As we look at a hotel, again, it has to be right sized and rightly built. It has to be the right kind of hotel, but roughly 120 to 150 rooms. Thinking about it from a team standpoint, so adjoining rooms, double rooms, similar to like a 3-star kind of hotel. Holiday Inn Express kind of comes to mind. And so that will go up either congruent with the sports complex or shortly thereafter. Right? We've had some projects where they go up at the same time. We've had some projects where we said, well, we want to get the sports complex built and get traffic driven into it. And then we're going to lag the hotel by 3 months or 6 months. And so we'll see where that ends up kind of settling out. Potential phase 2 would be potential indoor ice rinks, structured parking, like I mentioned, potentially with a retail level on the ground floor with parking above it, or an underground parking deck, if you will, with retail above it. Family entertainment, so think Dave and Buster's, whether it's an arcade or sports entertainment. Out parcel retail space, so additional retail, additional fast food restaurants, Starbucks, sit down restaurants, and medical office buildings. So you can kind of see on the site plan, if you haven't looked at it before, kind of how we laid that 29 acres out. And so you can see the big indoor sports complex, about 115,000 square feet in this rendering, with the potential to add that future ice rink to square off that building. Structured parking in the middle, hotel, restaurant on the corner, additional restaurant retail through the middle, soccer field, basketball courts, green space park areas, kind of the playground. And the way that this is laid out, we did it very intentionally so that it integrates with what's going on the east or the western side of the development too, right? From a walkability standpoint, whether you're in the residential townhomes or the affordable housing, you walk down the street to get to the soccer field. You can ride a golf cart and come to a restaurant. It integrates with the park that's going in the southwest corner of this map. And so, again, is this the final plan? I have no idea. It lays out really well. It makes sense. But as we have more conversations, then this. Some of the renderings, that we've put together, ultimately looks like, I have no idea. But we want your input on that. And this is something that's more than just a big metal building. It should be first class. It should be classy. It should be modern looking. That invites people in. So, one of the big things that we've heard, and we've done a lot of listening, is community use. And so, I started putting this slide together, and this, part of this slide was what was on the presentation, but I added a piece to it, and we'll get to it in a second, of responsibility, right? And community use, right, it, again, is a big part of what makes these things successful. And it's not really financial, right? Financially, what makes these things successful is getting rental agreements, use agreements, getting tournament fees, hosting track meets, that sort of thing. But the community use is what really supports these types of facilities across the country, not just Charlotte, Monday through Thursday, right? And so if we make the assumption that the community use isn't really the economic driver of the profitability of this piece, then why do we keep people out from enjoying what this thing has to offer, right? It's kind of our thing. And so, we kind of broke this down into no cost, discounted cost, and full cost. And so, come over and play on the soccer field or the football field. Come over and play basketball, right? Come over and play on the playground and walk on the trails, right? And then if there's a program like a sports camp or a summer camp or a spring break camp, right? As an East Charlotte resident, right, you guys have put enough time, effort, and energy into this that there's a preferred rate for that, right? We still have costs associated with running those programs, right? We have to pay for gear, we have to pay for lunches, we have to pay for staff. And so while we can't offer some of those things for free, we can certainly offer them at a discount to residents of the area. They're going to be just full rate, and that's just how it is, right? If you're entering a basketball tournament into a basketball, or a basketball team into a basketball tournament, there's a registration fee for that. Not all of those fees are dictated by us. Some of those are through tournament organizers that we don't have any control of. But it also lends itself to a scholarship program, right? So we've used that very effectively with some of the other facilities that we've been part of. Is community businesses, right? The bigger businesses in the region, want to support these types of causes and community use. So they're very willing to to provide scholarship dollars that can then be reinvested into the community through programming. And so again, what this ultimately ends up being will be whatever it's going to be. But know that this is a big part of the success of these things. And from a responsibility standpoint, right, I think it's important to take just a minute to talk about that. Right? If this is going to be an amenity to the community also has a responsibility to this facility. Right? You don't have a responsibility to me, but to this facility that's being constructed here and being hopefully becomes a part of the community. You guys, as business owners, as residents, as faith leaders, have a responsibility to promote it, to look after it like it was your own, to invest, your time, talent, resources into different opportunities. And there could be an opportunity to invest financially as part of a community investment group that becomes an ownership group of this facility. And so, if you want ownership of a facility, then own part of the facility, right? We envision this being overseen, if you will, by a community board with representatives from the city, the private side, the business community, the community as a whole, the faith community, and other key stakeholders, right? We don't want to come into this as, judge and jury of exactly how this thing's going to be run. And that's in our view, truly what a partnership is, right? If you're going to have benefits with this, you have responsibilities that go along with it. And if you have oversight of this, you're going to be more apt to really take ownership of it. And so from an impact standpoint, we did a feasibility study early 2023. And again, I'm not going to read through all of this stuff, but obviously there is significant economic impact that can be had through the development of a sports facility. Some things the city's interested in, tax revenue, job creation, some things CRVA and the county are interested in, right? Hotel room tax, total number of visitors. And there's some things that the community is interested in, right? Small business opportunities, visitor spending. And so all of these things kind of, we use this as a check the box exercise to a degree, in that we kind of anecdotally knew that a sports complex in Charlotte makes a lot of sense. It's just bringing the right partners together to make it happen. We have affiliations and relationship, a lot of the top organizations. Again, so the economic model that fuels this is tournaments, rentals, that sort of thing. And so we don't have any reservations that we can fill this up on weekends for tournaments, during the week for rentals, carving out spaces and time for that community use. So, kind of as a summary, right, this is truly a partnership. Everybody benefits, from the community to the city, the CRVA to the private side. The way that a public-private partnership works, for anyone that's not familiar, is that we come in as the private side. The municipality partners with us. They provide capital, land, tax incentives, whatnot, and then it's developed, run, operated by the private side. And then it's overseen by that nonprofit board that is comprised of a variety of different stakeholders. And so our next steps, right, as we see it, and this we put this original presentation together before that June 5th meeting, so you can see that bullet point on there. But approval of the EDC recommendation, which now will be later than June 26th, after the potential community engagement session. And then we'll go into having some meetings with the master developer, economic development, the community, and do some more of our own due diligence to see what pieces work exactly. We'll sign a development agreement with the city, the pre-development timeline is fairly short. The master plan has already been done. There will be some planning and zoning, take roughly 6 to 9 months. Construction is fairly short. Right now, things are trending on the 12-month side rather than the 18-month side. Right, so this is looking like if all ducks line up the way they're supposed to, late 2024, early 2025, to be open with the first phase of the facility. And so, Greg, I don't know if I stuck to the agenda, if I ran over.
Different projects that we have going on, please email me. What the city truly needs to do for the residents to do is to take its survey regarding this proposal. And again, there's more information about the other proposal as well, but you can read through it. We've provided some context for you to take it. Unfortunately, the city said its intent was to translate this into Spanish. Right now, their survey is not translated into Spanish. You can change the tab on the page to make it multilingual, but the survey itself is set up as a Google Doc that you cannot change the language to. So what we have done, we have translated the steps into Spanish that can be disseminated throughout the community for how folks can fill out this survey. So that is part one of advocacy, Luis, is the city survey. And then the next piece is, if you are in favor of this proposal, which I know we've heard quite a few folks who have in the past few days, because we started this 3 days ago, we have essentially a letter right now. The ultimate recipient of this will be City Council. We are going to keep this running list of names until Council makes a vote on which proposal it would like to move forward with, which, to my understanding, as staff related most recently, Jason, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but August. I know our hopes had been July, but my understanding from the last communication I saw was August. Is
that kind of tracks right? From my understanding, they don't have a July meeting. So, they're going to do this community. I've heard that it will be a community engagement meeting June 28th. Likely late afternoon, early evening. I don't know the structure, the format of it. But then, then you're into July, right?
Sure.
So, that gives time, I think, collectively to rally the troops, if you will, for staff to do more of their work, and then to have follow-ups as needed. So, they can go into whatever August meeting there is with the recommendation.
So with that said, we have this letter at this point, which you can see that the community is asking city to move forward with option B, Eastland Yards Indoor Sports Complex. And you can see the reasons are really for Charlotte East. I'm going to tell you all, we've been having conversations with every proposal that's come to the table since November. And I mean conversations, dozens and dozens and dozens. And we first were approached by Jason and team a week and a half ago, and it was very clear, not just to us, but many of the folks in the room, that this was the proposal that we felt in a genuine way put the community at the center of the conversation. And so for that reason, we decided to say, hey, let's go ahead and start organizing around it, but making the survey for all opinions accessible to everyone, but at least giving the community to hear regarding this proposal. So at this point in 3 days, we have about 150 signatures, including folks from other parts of town. But we have about 30 neighborhoods represented at this point. And again, understanding this is early in the process, as this is the first time that many of you have seen this, do your due diligence, complete that survey, ask questions, reach out. And then when and if you do feel comfortable, you can have your name added to this signature, to this letter by just sending us an email. The recipient of this, again, will be the city right before they hold their vote, whenever that is. We truly think we could probably get to 500 easily, as we have 150 in 3 days. So with all of that said, I know I have 2 follow-ups that I have to do with Miss Annette and Miss Diane right after this call. And with that said, we are at 4:05, and I am going to end this call. Thank you, Jason and team. And thank you everyone who showed up. We're going to put this on YouTube later tonight, so we'll send the link out again to make this accessible to everyone who's unable to take the